And you're welcome back to the marketplace. Let's now settle for the very fair story. The Bank of Ghana is taking steps to firm up the marginal stability that the Ghana cedi has recently witnessed. Sources say the daily support for banks has improved slightly, reaching over $300 million since the month of May. But has this really improved the situation of banks that are demanding for dollars to support businesses? The following report tells us more.
From just a little dollar support, the Bank of Ghana has improved its intervention from around $10 million to about $30 million in a day to the commercial banks. However, sources say based on the market demand, the regulator sometimes adjusts its support. Checks by Joy Business shows that there has been some marginal stability on the market compared to the early part of May this year, where we saw some significant decline in the cedi's value almost every day, which saw the rate hitting almost 5 Ghana cedis. But according to the new president of the Association of Financial Market Operators, which is made up of bank treasurers and currency dealers, the improved support has helped the situation. Here's Kofi Asari Pienim.
Ghana's fundamentals are right. We have not even hit our cocoa season, and yet, and yet our reserves are at 5 months import cover. One of the main challenges I believe people were looking at was probably maybe the MTN IPO. Right, and the fact that if they're looking for USD, maybe people would buy dollars and therefore the currency would run. We have adequate reserves, and the central bank is coming up with structures to ensure that the movement is seamless. If the central bank doesn't, our job as financial market operators is to create structures. You can invest in forwards, you can invest in swaps, you can invest in options.
According to the Bank of Ghana, the sudden pressure on the cedi has come about as a result of some foreign investors selling off their local bonds purchased in return for dollar investment, as well as the MTN IPO. But whichever way you look at it, a more sustainable way of stabilizing the cedi in the long term is required than this dollar support business, especially when the Bank of Ghana's dollar reserve, which should be around $8 billion, is limited, and managers might want to be careful not to deplete everything so that there will be enough for a rainy day when the demand really picks up.
Now, auditing firm KPMG, which is currently managing Unibank, has confirmed to Joy Business it has received proposals from some private investors expressing interest to take over operations of the bank. This follows the decision by the Bank of Ghana to put the bank, that's Unibank, under receivership with KPMG. The company is expected to present the state of the bank report to the central bank in 6 months, after which a final decision will be taken by the regulator. In an exclusive interview with Joy Business, senior partner at KPMG, Anthony Sapong, says the proposals have been received but deferred until further notice.
You need somebody who has that financial muscle, that if they're assuming the existing shareholders will not be able to make up what the capital is, you definitely need a partner who has the financial muscle to bring in the needed capital. But running a bank is not just the capital. You also need technical expertise. You need people who can bring in the right culture, because as long as we are human beings, culture, institutional culture is very, very critical. So if the bank had gone through difficulty, you don't want a situation after all this work. This, like they say, history repeats itself, but this is a situation you don't want history to repeat itself. So you'll be looking out for a partner that can have one or two, a combination of this. It is possible to have a partner from local who can partner and bring this on board, or can bring part of it on board. And I think we will not shy away from that. It's also possible to have a partner with a foreign partner that can bring all of this on board. But you could also even have a combination, because the truth is that when power is diverse and is spread across, then you avoid dominance. It's also easier to create a culture which is more or less suitable to all. And I think that helps in a situation of this nature.
At least we say coming events cast their shadows.
Right.
Have we seen any shadows?
In terms of
an investor
in this particular question?
Yes, please.
Well, even as I sit here, I was supposed to, for example, have a meeting with a potential investor who is interested if we get there. But we have said that we haven't gotten there. First of all, it's not even in our mandate to discuss. So and we haven't gotten there. So people, it's a market situation, so people are watching because already it was announced that this bank didn't have capital. Somebody may have capital who wants to put into a bank. So some people have sent us some emails, but what we have said is that we haven't gotten there yet. Okay. When we finish our plan, the mandate sits with Bank of Ghana to even approve it. Okay. And then it's when they approve and it's being rolled out, then you know. So they should hold their guns. When the time is up, I think it will be transparent. So it will be chasing you I wouldn't say chase, but I would say people have approached. Okay. Yes, but we have had to hold them and say that let's finish our work, and at the appropriate time, the mandate rests with Bank of Ghana, who are the ultimate people who will approve it and roll out a plan. At that point, and and as I said, like they say in law, procedure is also important as substance. If the law says you consider shareholders, existing shareholders first, then you'll be stepping out of bounds.
Let's still stay further in the banking industry, and some commercial banks have started publishing the names of their loan defaulters, perhaps as a way of reducing mounting non-performing loans, which is negatively affecting the bank's books. Joy Business gives some reasons why non-performing loans continue to rise from the bank's perspectives. Our man Philip Namfuri tells us more.
In recent times, there have been some publications in the national dailies by banks on customers who have defaulted on loans they took from the banks, even as far as putting the pictures of directors of these companies in the national papers or the national dailies. Now, we are going to explore the main reasons or the underpinnings why customers default on loans they take from banks. And if you go through banking literature or financial literature, it's broken down into two main categories: bank-specific factors and the macroeconomic environment. What do I mean by bank-specific factors? What factors does this bank that the customer borrows from cause, or how does this bank affect the customer's repayment ability or the loans that go bad? And how does the macro environment affect this? We are all conversant with how the macro environment affects how loans go bad. We look at the city's depreciation, we look at inflation, we look at how this affects customers' ability to repay back their loans. So, for example, if you borrow from a bank and you import items and the city depreciates, you are left with very little to pay back to the bank because you're using a lot of your money to import these goods and services. That's when the city depreciates. If you look at bank-specific factors, you look at, for example, if you go and apply for a loan from a bank, the bank is supposed to scrutinize where you, the customer, or the borrower, is coming from. And banks are doing this in a very lackluster manner. They're not really taking cognizance of this approach, and it's called screening. There are three main ways in which a bank looks out for borrowers: screening, monitoring, and enforcement. Screening, essentially, when you come through, they look at you and see if you are credit worthy. Monitoring is how are you repaying back these loans? Are you doing it diligently? Are you defaulting, or are you showing signs of default? And enforcement, when these loans go bad, they are supposed to pursue you. And that's why you find these things in national dailies, or you have some customers going to court because the banks are looking at different ways of getting back their monies.
Enough of banking now. Let's now turn attention to some developments in the oil and gas sector. And oil marketing companies, OMCs, are expected to start reviewing their prices downwards this week. This was after projections and some calculations by Joy Business pointed to a little over 2% drop in prices at the pumps, expected to begin next week in the second pricing window for the month of June. Now, joining me in the studio for some more analysis is research analyst of the Institute of Energy Security, IES, Mikdad Mohammed, who will tell us some of the reasons. Mikdad, you're welcome to the marketplace.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
First, tell us, what are some of the reasons leading to this continuous drop for the month of June?
Well, first and foremost, the reduction that we have experienced right from the 6th day of the first pricing window to the second one is a byproduct of deregulation. That when we started the window, a liter of fuel was going for 4.89 cedis per liter. Now, well, as a market player, to capitalize on a competitive environment, reviewed its prices downwards by 0.04 pesos. Quite marginal, but in the marketplace, it means a lot. It could play into a driver taking a long U-turn and coming to buy from Guel instead of buying from, say, Total or Shell. And as a result of this development, large OMCs like Shell, like Total, also reviewed their prices downwards to compete with GOIL. Now, for this particular window, IES, we projected stability. Stability because Brent crude prices at the international markets has seen a marginal reduction. You look at Brent crude, the benchmark gasoline has gone down by 3.22%, but gas oil, which is diesel, actually has gone up by some 0.85%, very marginal. But these reductions and the marginal increment for gas oil are invalidated by a depreciated cedi, which is the trading currency for these products. The cedi depreciated from the last window to the current window by some 1.72%. And this served to nullify whatever reduction we will have been expecting from the pump.
Okay.
Now,
so the reduction could have gone down further.
It could have gone down further by some 4% to 5% if the cedi was stable for this particular window.
Right.
So this particular reduction we are seeing, the extra 2% we are seeing as a follow-up to the first one, is a byproduct of deregulation, demand and supply playing together, market forces, competition among OMCs is serving the consumers for good.
So do we expect the over 100 oil marketing companies to actually reflect these downward trend in
Well,
pricing?
for most of them, to play in the competition. Now, drivers are beginning to not only think of the name of the OMC, they are beginning to look at prices on the board before they drive into an OMC to buy fuel. Okay. So to play within, you have to cope. There are some filling stations I've seen direct competition when you share a wall with GOIL. When a driver passes by, you share a wall with GOIL. GOIL is selling at 4.78, and you are selling at 4.85. The driver will look at the prices and go where he can best afford. So it is playing very well. There is a filling station at Sapeman. They share a wall with GOIL. And if you go and look at the competition playing around that environment, it's interesting. It's an effably beautiful tribute to deregulation. But we at IES have said that this marginal increment, 2%, 0.04%, it can serve consumers for good if the special petroleum tax component of the price build-up is eliminated totally. Okay. When it is done, we can buy fuel a gallon for 18 cedis in this country.
That's quite significant.
Very significant.
Now, let's look at the outlook now. And, OPEC elsewhere wants to boost production to force prices down. Actually, they're meeting this week. And following the outcome of this meeting, we could either see a drop in crude oil prices. Now, we are, as a producing country of oil, how would this action impact both in the downstream and upstream sectors?
Well, for the OPEC meeting in Vienna coming on Thursday, observers are watching critically the outcomes. But irrespective of the outcomes, already Saudi Arabia and Russia have signaled their willingness to keep pumping more. And when they keep pumping more, what can make out for this one is that Venezuela and Iran under sanction is curbing production a little. Venezuela has also had problems with its production. This will complement the shortfalls or the overpumping that you will expect from Saudi Arabia or from Russia. So where Venezuela is not producing as it should, and Iran, a major producer, is under sanction, you will expect that irrespective of the outcomes, even though we watch it keenly, the OPEC policy of production that will come out to dictate the production rates of the countries. Largely, should Saudi Arabia or Russia decide to keep pumping more, the impact will not be as noticeable as it will be if Venezuela and Iran were still full steam on the market and producing.
Now, as a petrol producer or crude oil producer, how would it affect us, in the upstream, where when prices on the international market drop, definitely we expect it to affect our...
Definitely, for revenue purposes. Here we have two hits. We have a positive hit at the upstream, and then at the downstream where we have a deregulated market, consumers suffer. But largely, we are hopeful and expectant. Goldman Sachs, they have projected that in the coming months, fuel prices should go as high as $85 per barrel. And for us at the upstream level, that is good news. It will mean that our projects, our pumping revenue from the 10 fields, from the Jubilee fields, can guarantee us more revenue that can be leveraged for development as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Mikdad, for your time. And our research analyst with the Institute of Energy Security, Mikdad Mohammed, sharing his thoughts on this particular development when the IES is predicting, or even Joy Business is predicting, a 2% reduction in petrol prices in the second pricing window for the month of June. Now, away from that, Minister for Railway Development Joe Gatti has touted the competence of South African company Transnet International Holdings to help develop the country's railway sector. The Ghana Railway Company Limited has already signed an MOU with Transnet to commence development works soon. In an interview with Joy News after an engagement with officials of Transnet at Takoradi in the Western region, the sector minister said the decision to involve South Africa was taken together with the Ghana Railway Company based on the company's past performance. The future of the Ghana Railway Company Limited under the Ministry of Railway Development is set to witness a positive transformation. A South African company, Transnet International Holdings, is to invest in the country's railway sector. President Akufo-Addo has vowed to add 947 kilometers to the existing railway lines. Here's Minister for Railway Development, Joe Gatti.
It is important that we make sure that the systems and procedures and the work ethics of the Ghana Railway Company Limited are sharpened to enable them to meet the expectations of the new railway sector. We are looking for a partner, and we think that Transnet is a good partner. We recommended Transnet to the Ghana Railway Company Limited. They went, had a meeting with them in South Africa, and they invited me to join the meeting. If Ghana Railway Company had come to the conclusion that it was not a good partnership, I can't force it down their throat. Now, Transnet, you can talk to them, and I'm sure you talk to them. They control 30,000 kilometers of rail. We have 60, and Kumasi is only 300. And so they are coming to look at all aspects of our operations. We are opening up our books to them. We see how we can cooperate. As they said, they brought in all kinds of experts. They brought in experts in the area of rolling stock, experts in the area of track, finance. They are lawyers. They are prepared to bring in financial injection and form a partnership with us, which will take us from step to step. So I think it's a wonderful thing that has happened today.
Officials of Transnet International Holdings, managers of over 30,000 kilometer railway line and tracks in South Africa, have visited Ghana. This was after a delegation led by Ghana's Minister of Railway Development to sign a memorandum of understanding with the South African company to come on board and help develop the sector. Leader of the team from South Africa, Wilson Moba, also shared some thoughts.
So the partnership with Transnet is one that is geared towards revitalizing Ghana's railways, particularly the narrow gauge lines, as the minister has requested us to do. So in particular, what we want to bring on board is our extensive skills and experience in operating railways. As you know, South Africa runs a network of over 30,000 kilometers of narrow gauge railway lines. We move on average possibly about over 200 million tons of cargo through our rail system. So we believe that those experiences can be brought to Ghana to help in the revitalization program.
And just before we go, the Tema Port Expansion Project has received a major boost as part of moves to enable it to accommodate some of the world's largest container ships and improve cargo handling services and capacity. This was after the company handling the project, Meridian Port Services, secured the first $100 million out of the $667 million project financing package for the port expansion project. In a statement, MPS said the funding will enable the development of an ultra-modern state-of-the-art port facility at Ghana's major ports. Now, Joy Business's Norvan Akwa-Hayford has been following up on this particular story, and he's joining me in the studio for some more explanation. Now, Norvan, where exactly is this money coming from?
Okay, so those $100 million is coming from IFC, which teamed up with some financial institutions and commercial banks to be able to get that $667 million that they need for the project. Don't forget that this project is $1.5 billion. But immediately they need some $100 million.
Is it for the Tema Port alone or the Takoradi Port as well?
This is just for the Tema Port expansion project to allow bigger ships, vessels that can bring in more containers, and then also it will be a state-of-the-art facility, especially in the West African sub-region. And so for them, which is MPS, they needed that money to be able to do this project. And let me tell you that there's some part of equity which will come from MPS themselves, their shareholders. That is some $333 million.
Well, can you freshen our memories a bit? What exactly does the project entail at the port?
Okay, this particular project is supposed to have 4 berths. Currently, we are told that 2 of them will be completed by 2019, and then by 2020 the other 2 will be completed. And so we're hoping that we'll have one of the biggest ports within the sub-region to help facilitate trade even for the landlocked countries.
Anything else we would like to know?
Let's also not forget that this project, as it is going to have MPS manage it for 35 years, because it's a BOT project that is build, operate, and transfer. And so when they are done, after 35 years, when they have managed the project, it will be handed over to the GPHA, that's the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority.
Thank you very much for those details. Northern Aqua Hayford is with Joy Business. And on that note, we wrap up this afternoon's edition of the Marketplace. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Apuaji. Let's meet again same time tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.